Well, I think we're ready to get started on the deep dive this morning. Excited to be with everybody here on this Monday morning. I'm not in our normal KCM studio. I'm out in Dallas, Texas, out here in Tom Ferry's office. I'm grateful for that. Grateful to be on this morning. And I'm out here for a couple of days with several other folks in our business, just spending a couple of days talking about this business and this market, going forward. So I'll have a few things to share on that. Doing an event tomorrow and then on to Denver. So a travel week, but good to be on for the deep dive here. And listen, if you're watching, let us know where you're watching from, what part of the country. As we wrap up the year, it's always so good to see folks from all over that watch the deep dive. And I want to say thank you just this year for joining and being the educated agent on these topics so that you can stay ahead. We're going to talk this morning about the 2025 market. I literally just shared this with the group next door about 2025 owners and CEOs of companies that are sort of thinking, what is next year going to hold? And I'm going to kind of walk through that. I think we've got 20 or so slides that the KCM research team has prepared and done a phenomenal job on gathering all this information so that you can know what's ahead for next year. And as we wrap up, I'm going to share something from an event that I was at last week that I think was very, very important. But so good to see folks. I can see you right here, Becky Jean. See you there, John. Great to see you, Jill and Sarah. So good to see so many folks from across the country that are joining the deep dive. Let us know where you're watching from if you're watching this morning, so that we can say hello and great to have you on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my slides. Give me a little bit of time here. It's not my normal setup, but go ahead and I will share that as we get started, and we will get that going. Am I sharing the right thing here? Let me stop that real quick and make sure I'm sharing the right thing. All right. I feel like I'm not sharing the right thing. All right, maybe I am. If I am, I am. Okay, I can see it here. I can see it on my screen. But welcome. I see the thumbs up. Thank you for that. That helps me. But really, this deep dive is all about what to expect coming next year, and gonna kind of take it from a perspective of these three questions, and where rates going. We've talked about that multiple times on the deep dive over the last several weeks, and gosh, the last several months, maybe even all this year. Two, will there be more home sales in 2025? I'll cover all that from all the projections and give you all that information, and then we'll kind of wrap up with home prices. I'll share a little bit from the event that I was at, because it was a very interesting comment that I want to give you. But all of this information is the most recent projections for next year. Now, I want to say something that I said just a minute ago in the group that I was in, is I believe we're in a point right now where it's almost like the dead of winter of real estate, right? A lot of projections being downgraded, and a less maybe aggressive look at next year. And I want you to keep that in mind from the perspective that if you're doing that in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty and there are a lot of questions, then you just have to take that with a grain of salt. And I think, and I'll kind of share my opinion as we go through this about what's going on with some of these projections. But I think it's going to give you a way to say, okay, this is what I anticipate and what I believe to be true about next year in the real estate market. So first, we'll kind of start off with this rate perspective and conversation. Odetta Cushy does such a good job. She said, if the Fed continues with their rate cutting cycle, we can expect mortgage rates to drift a little lower next year. Slightly lower rates will boost affordability, ease some of the rate lock-in effect for sellers, and hopefully unlock some existing home inventory. So, as we get into these projections, I would say, Odetta nails it right here when she says, drift a little lower. I do believe we'll see a better mortgage rate environment going into next year, but I don't see anybody saying, we're gonna blow the doors off. Matter of fact, Lauren Shune said this Are we going to go back to the 4% range? Per his forecast, unfortunately, we will not. It's more likely that we'll be around 6%, and that'll be the new normal, somewhere between 5.5% and 6.5% in mortgage rates. So this is where it starts to get interesting, right? And we've talked about this so many times on the deep dive. And sure, if you're listening and you're in the business right now, the fact that we're not maybe going back to a 3% 30-year fixed mortgage rate, I think most people are like, you know what, I get it. And listen, if you're listening right now, I want you to do something. I want you to share this with somebody that you've talked to about, maybe somebody in your office, somebody that you've talked to about mortgage rates. Take that and just tag them in the comments, because I think the more people that understand this, we can give buyers and sellers our expert opinion of what's going to happen in this market and what's the trajectory of this market. So if we start to look at these forecasts, this is what it starts to look like. Okay, these are the most recent forecast as of the 6th of December. Here we are, the 9th, just a few days ago. This goes back to the beginning of 2023, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, through the end of this year and the projections going into next. Okay, so remember I told you I think a lot of these projections are being given right now that's sort of in a time that's the dead of winter of real estate, right? We just had an election, Fed's meeting, we have inflation we're trying to deal with, we have unemployment that there are questions about, and many people just going, okay, what's going to happen? The talk of tariffs and new administration coming in, all these things play into the housing market and ultimately the financing cost of a home. And so projections have been adjusted to where, truthfully, we don't see them going as low as what maybe we saw 2 or 3 months ago. Okay, so if you see that, here's what starts to form going into next year. Very clear on this projection is this sort of, if you can see, I drew this arrow in right here of this band between 6.25% and 6.5%, that these forecasters say this is where we're sort of going. And now I think right now, if you take that sort of mindset that I told you that a lot of these are being adjusted right now, my personal belief in this is we'll probably do a little bit better than this, just from the sheer fact of folks being probably more conservative right now. But I don't see anybody going, hey, we're going to blow the doors off and get way down into the 5s, maybe in that 6 and 6.25, maybe dip our toe in the 5s going into next year. But that gives you this sort of look right now. And even on some of these projections, interesting thing, we're starting to beat some of them already. We're starting to beat some of them. And I think that will be a true statement going into next year. But here's the interesting thing, and I've thought about this, and want to give you this as a little bit of perspective. I think there's opportunity that appears in the market sort of in this area in the first and second quarter, and that'll be dictated by the trajectory of rates, where maybe a lot of people are like, hey, we'll wait till after the election, we'll wait until next year, and we'll sort of wait until rates start to come down. I think that as we've talked about, days on market rising, inventory rising, velocity slowing down. I think that will continue in the next few months, which then gives a buy opportunity, right? When you want to buy, you want to go in and buy when others are not buying. And so I do think that perspective in doing, even if you're listening to this right now, studying more of that and understanding more of that in your market, I think will be critically important. But if you start to look at these projections, here's what they look like. This is just the number view of what the graph was. And these forecasts have us somewhere around 6.3% by the end of the year. Again, my personal opinion is that we will beat these, but you can come up with your own relevant market opinion based upon all these facts in the market right now. Lastly, I'll give you one more quote from Freddie Mac. Lower mortgage rates are expected to boost the housing market, but the lift will be modest, given continued tightness in existing inventory and home buyers staying on the sidelines expecting further rates declines. So I do think that's true. I think people that put off a decision will make a different decision going into next year. I think many will wait for further declines in rates as we go into next year. So let's hop to the next question here. Will more homes sell in 2025? I think that's a question that we have, in our business. Maybe consumers don't wonder about that, but this is the one where is this market heading? Where is it going? And what is that going to mean from transaction levels? Break that down for you just a little bit. Redfin said this: we expect existing home sales to tick up next year, ending 2025 at an annualized rate between 4.1 and 4.4 million. That's existing home sales. That represents a year-over-year increase of between 2 and 9%. We're presenting an unusually wide sales range this year because while high housing costs may price out some would-be buyers, there's also a fair amount of pent-up demand in the market. So you start to see the moral of this story, and I'll kind of come back to it as you look at forecasters, is sort of the commonality is most forecasters, if not all forecasters, are saying we will sell more homes next year. Now, the question is that 2% more? Is that 9% more? There starts to become this sort of band of where I see these forecasters, what they're saying. So this is everybody that we're tracking right now that forecast existing home sales. The average, you see the green bar there, 4.2 million existing home sales in 2025. Anybody from National Association of Home Builders to NAR, in that range right there, wondering, it's interesting. One of the comments that was made when I was doing this just a minute ago was, I tend not to believe NAR, right? They've got an embedded audience. Obviously, they want to put good information, and maybe people even on the deep dive believe that or think that in our business. And I don't think that's necessarily wrong. But you start to see the average of these forecasters, a little over 4 million home sale. Now to put that into perspective, we don't have the final numbers for this year. We'll get the November numbers here in about a week, I think, for existing home sales. But we'll end up this year probably knocking on the door of 4 million home sales in this country, 3.9-ish. We'll have to wait and see when that number comes out. So a little bit more home sales next year. I think that's based upon a better mortgage rate environment and people that put their decisions off in the past few months and past year that hop back into the market. But you should expect for more homes to sell next year than what we sold this year. Second thing, number of new home sales forecast. You see the average here, about 750,000 new homes to be sold next year from those that forecast that. Now, I think it's very in line with what we've done the last several years, selling 700,000-800,000 new homes in this country. But that gives you the perspective of existing homes and new home sales. The thing that always is covered when it's covered in the media is existing home sales. We want to take a look at the whole of the market. And so as we start to look at that, we can see, okay, these are what forecasters are saying. Where do I believe our market will end up? Where do I believe sales will be where we're at? I can give information based upon that. Ralph McLaughlin says our 2025 forecast shows that as both lower rates and time chisel away at the lock-in effect that's held sales back to year, we should expect home sales to rise modestly by 1.5%. Okay, so go back to Redfin. I just mentioned 2 to 9%. Ralph McLaughlin, 1.5%, and expect to hear dissenting voices out in the market right now. Why? Well, we're sort of in this time adjusting to what's going to be ahead, post-election, economic issues, all the things right there. And so folks are sort of, tepid about what they want to say is going to happen next year. But there's Ralph saying, I think it's going to be around 1.5% sales growth going into next year. 2025 total home sales forecast average about 5.1 million. I think, somewhere knocking on the door of 5 million is likely where we will end up next year. And so as you start to look at all this, there are a couple things that become true. And this is what I want to give you as you think about this. And everybody obviously listening is in the business, whether you're a loan officer, you're an agent, you're a title rep. So many people listen to the deep dive. But I think one of the things that becomes true about these forecasts is this look right here. Total home sales, again, I mentioned, are forecast to rise. So if you take this market, this is total home sales going all the way back to 2019, peak in 2021, and then sort of bottom out and modestly improve in 2025. That becomes very clear in what forecasters are saying. Now the question is, do we see some home sales around 2 to 5%? 3 months ago it was we're going to see 10% rise. I don't see anybody saying that today. If you were to ask me, I think we'll be somewhere in that probably 3 to 5% range of home sales growth going into next year, which again is going to be a good thing. And I think it's all about the perspective that you have and what's happening in your local market and what do you believe will happen there. Lawrence Yun said maybe the worst is coming to an end directionally. I think there's going to be roughly 10% boost of existing home sales in 2025 and 2026. So the range of these is anywhere from 1.5% or 2% up to 10% here. With NAR, I think will probably be somewhere around 3 to 4%, just south of 5% home sales growth going into next year based on everything that we see right now. Last one here. What will happen with home prices? We've covered this extensively. The good news is there are a lot of people in the market right now that forecast home prices and stay on top of home prices. Our KCM research team does a phenomenal job of staying on top of all this information and doing it so that you have what you need to give your clients the best advice on, should I buy a home right now? Should I wait? What about mortgage rates? All of that. I do believe there's buy opportunity happening in the market. Redfin said prices will rise at a pace similar to that of the second half of 2024 because we don't expect there to be enough new inventory to meet demand. I don't think it could have been said better there. There will not be enough inventory across the market in large to plateau prices, right? Undersupply will keep the upward pressure on home prices as we go throughout next year. All those that forecast rates, you see them right here. 19 places that say this is what we believe about home prices going into next year. The average right at 3.1% of all of these folks. And I would say this is very historically normal, very historically average for home prices. And oh, by the way, the word that I would use is we see healthy home price appreciation in the market next year. That's important to remember. The last few years has been unhealthy price appreciation. If I was making a video today, I would be talking about the difference between unhealthy price appreciation and healthy price appreciation, about the number of homes that are being sold in the country. I think as we end up the end of this year, and certainly as we begin next year, many people are wondering what that's going to look like. So I hope that gives you perspective on that. I as always, I want to tell you, we do this so that you can explain what's happening, because it comes from the belief that we have at KCM that most agents know right now what's happening. And maybe they know that this, has been a year that has been a struggle, and a couple of years that have been hard. Most agents know what's happening in the market. Good agents understand it, but only great agents can explain what's happening. And my hope is that you can explain what is happening in this market so that your clients can make a confident decision. Once again, I've shown this the last couple of times that we've been on the deep dive. If you've watched it, you've seen it. Hopefully you've scanned this QR code by now. But if you haven't, if there's a reason you haven't, scan this QR code. We do a quarterly survey along with John Burns Consulting. They do a phenomenal job of saying this is what's happening in the market, and would love you to be a part of that. That way we get that information. I'll share it with you. We'll give it back to you so that you go, okay, this is sort of the climate in the market will help you navigate this market very, very well. I'm going to stop sharing for just a minute and end on this. It's always so good to have everybody on the deep dive. Grateful for everybody that puts in there where they're watching from. But I had a chance last week to join a mastermind group, and I actually shared all this information with this group of great agents that had gathered. And as I wrapped up, this agent said to me, she said, you seem optimistic about the 2025 housing market, and that's refreshing. And I thought, wow, I think that's true. I am optimistic about the 2025 housing market. But here's what I said. You have two options right now. You can be optimistic about it, or you can be not optimistic about it, which is pessimistic or frustrated or whatever that is. And that's the choice that you have today, right? Is that we have those abilities to see what's going to happen. The reason I'm optimistic is because I believe we'll sell more homes. I believe we'll be in a better mortgage rate environment. That is a good thing. And we'll see healthy price appreciation. That is a good thing for our market. I'm not optimistic because I have my head in the sand and don't see what the issues are. And we face issues in housing. I'm not trying to say that. But I know that if I will greet the day and greet the year with optimism, that will mean more in my life and in my business and what I'm doing. So I hope you can take that away from this deep dive. My encouragement is that if you're a KCM member, go and grab these slides, go and grab some information, share it today as we wrap up the year, because people are wondering what's ahead for this housing market. So enjoy this week, enjoy this Monday. Grateful to be on here from Dallas. Great for our team putting all this together to get it to make it happen. And we'll see you back again next week. Take care.